Jodie Foster is a mother and grandmother who shares her name with famous actress and director Jodie Foster. She was born in Orange County, California. In 1997, she gave birth to her daughter Hannah and became a single mom. In January 2000, they moved from Montana to Chico, California. At the time, Jodie was 33 and Hannah was 3. Jodie had fond memories of the town. She spent a summer there taking care of her grandmother. She describes it as quaint and beautiful. She says it is a small town but big enough to raise a family. To her, it felt like home. In January 2000, Jodie Foster, 30, and her 2-year-old daughter Hannah are looking for a new place to live. Jodie spots a "For Rent" sign in front of a charming apartment complex on Parmack Road in Chico, California. During a quick tour of the building, she is overcome with a strange feeling about the place, but she brushes it aside, assuming it's just residual stress from the process of searching for a new home. At the end of the tour, Jodie asks for an application, and by the end of the week, the two are in the process of moving in. Specifically, they move into apartment 14. Jodie says the apartment did not feel peaceful. Instead, it felt dark, and it had a bizarre smell. She thought it was a chemical smell from a carpet. She also felt like someone was watching her. She wondered why she was feeling like that. She told herself she would start living a peaceful and happy life for herself and Hannah. But then strange things started happening. The first night living in the building, Jodie has a nightmare. A man and a woman are stalking a young woman. Jodie wakes up covered in sweat and shaken by the predatory nature of the couple in her nightmare, but she has no idea what they were talking about. As the weeks go by, Jodie has more dreams, and they grow increasingly detailed and violent. Meanwhile, her daughter has begun to speak to an angel that Hannah calls Mealy's, but then strange things started happening. The first odd occurrence involved a pair of Hannah's pink shoes. Jodie always kept them by the door so Hannah could put them on when they were ready to leave. Hannah remembers that one day, Jodie was trying to get her ready to go out when she started looking for the shoes. They were not in their usual spot. She found them in the middle of Hannah's bed. She asked Hannah if she put them there, but Hannah was adamant that she did not. Jodie says this happened day after day. The shoes kept being placed in the middle of the bed. After that, things got progressively stranger. She remembers waking up and finding salt and pepper shakers at the edge of the dining room table, even though she did not put them there. Other objects would disappear or move to different places in the apartment. At that point, she thought she was going crazy. Hannah says the things that were happening were scary. At the time, she did not understand why these things were happening. Jodie also experienced strange dreams. It was about a young couple in 1970s clothing who were searching for someone. She felt something predatory about them. In the next dream, she saw them walking down the hallway to her apartment. She then saw them trying to take Hannah. As Jodie screamed for them to stop, Hannah turned into an unfamiliar young woman with auburn hair. She then bolted awake, giving herself a panic attack. It was 3:37 a.m. When her friend Heidi visited the apartment, she felt a cold, palpable presence. In another dream, Jodie saw the young woman walking down a street in Chico. She then saw the couple driving a blue or gray car. They were apparently stalking the woman. They drove up to her and asked if she wanted a ride. She got in the car. They then drove to Jodie's apartment complex. The man got out, went up to Jodie, and asked to use the bathroom. Terrified, she woke up once again at 3:37 a.m. Jodie became so anxious and afraid of her dreams that she did not want to sleep. She was chronically exhausted. In one dream, she watched as the man came behind the young woman and put something over her mouth. The couple then drove off with her. After that, Jodie woke up covered in sweat and shaking. She wondered why she was having these dreams. But Jodie was not the only one having strange experiences. One morning while making breakfast, she heard Hannah say, "Hi." She asked Hannah who she was talking to, and Hannah said, "That girl right there, Mom." Jodie asked if someone had walked by their apartment window, but Hannah insisted that the girl was right there, pointing into her bedroom. She said the girl had a white shirt on, but according to Jody, no one was there. Another morning, Jody was brushing Hannah's hair when Hannah said she saw her friend in the mirror. Jody, however, did not see anyone. Hannah drew the girl she was seeing. One drawing depicted her being hung and abused by a couple. Hannah remembers calling the girl Mylis and saying she was her guardian angel. She also vividly remembers seeing her. She remembers her eyes, her hair, which was dark brown and worn in a flip, her clothing, and everything else about her. Hannah thought Mylis was a friend of Jody's and a real living person. She saw and talked to Mylis regularly. She says Mylis would visit her in her bedroom and kiss her on the forehead. She even had dreams where they would visit and talk with each other. One night, Jody, Hannah, and a family friend named Misty went out to dinner. When they came back, Misty felt as though someone was watching her. They noticed that the receiver for the wall phone was not there. They found it in the back bedroom. All of the toys in Hannah's room were in a pile. Hannah's Sing and Snore Ernie doll was on top of the pile with a shoestring tied into a noose around its neck. It kept saying, "I feel great." Shaken, Jody grabbed Hannah and ran out the front door. She called the Chico police and told them what she had found in the apartment. They took a report, but Jody says they did not seem to take her seriously. Shortly after she went to bed, Jody bolted awake again. The room was shaking and lights were flashing on and off. The Ernie doll kept repeating, "I feel great." Jody, Hannah, and Misty ran out of the apartment. Before leaving, Jody looked at a wall clock and saw that it was 3:37 a.m. again. She screamed into the apartment and told the ghost to leave. Hannah says she cannot imagine what Jody went through, having to take care of her and deal with the bizarre things that were happening. Jody says doors would slam shut on their own, clocks would read the wrong times, the heat would turn on by itself even when the air conditioner was running, the lights would go off and on, and light bulbs would explode. She had an electrician come and see if there was an electrical problem, but he confirmed that nothing was wrong. Jody says the strange events culminated in one night in February 2000. She woke up in the middle of the night and heard white, staticky TV noise. She found the TV on. She did not understand how that happened because you had to turn the dial on the TV itself to turn it on. Then the cupboard started flapping open and the burner on the stove turned on high. The Ernie doll started saying, "I feel great," over and over. Jody took the doll's batteries out because she thought they were dying. She then put it back in the closet. All of a sudden, it started talking and singing again. Hannah remembers the doll being scary. She says it would go off in the middle of the night, which would freak Jody out because it had no batteries. Later that night, all of the lights turned on at the same time. Jody did not understand what was happening. She went to her neighbor, the apartment manager, and told her something was wrong. The neighbor grabbed her dog and went into Jody's apartment. The dog jumped from the neighbor's arms and started barking loudly. Jody noticed that a cord attached to one of the lamps was swinging in the air like a jump rope. They all started screaming. The neighbor grabbed her dog and ran out of the apartment. Jody and Hannah quickly followed. By that point, it was about 6 a.m. Jody remembers sitting by the pool, crying. An older man who had lived in the apartment complex for about 25 years approached her and said, "You know, Jody, nobody lives in that apartment very long." Confused, Jody asked the man what he meant. He told her that previous tenants had also experienced hauntings, and a young woman who had once lived in Jody's apartment had been missing for years. Jody knew that the things happening in her apartment were not in her mind. She believes some people are born with certain spiritual qualities and are more sensitive or empathic than others. She thinks both she and Hannah are sensitive to paranormal energy. Jody says that when she moved into the apartment, she had an impending doom feeling, like something terrible was about to happen. Within just a few months, Hannah's strange sightings of Mylis and Jody's frightening dreams culminate in a terrifying night of poltergeist activity that pushed Jody beyond her breaking point. She took Hannah and leaves the apartment in the middle of the night, never to return. It isn't until years later, in 2008, that Jody musters up the courage to truly look into her former apartment's history. What she uncovers is both remarkable and horrifying. Jody later began dating Joel Wiley. After hearing her story, he found a book called Perfect Victim by Carla Norton. After reading it, he told Jody that a woman had gone missing from her old apartment, 19-year-old Marie Elizabeth Spanhake. After hours in the library searching through microfiche, he found an article about her disappearance that included her address. He also noticed that she had a nickname, Marlise. Jody remembered that Hannah had called the girl in the apartment Meelise, which sounds very similar to Marlise. Jody told Hannah about Marlise and showed her a picture of her. Hannah told Jody that Marlise was the girl in the apartment. Hannah's drawings of Meelise also matched Marlise. Hannah had drawn her in a white sweater and jeans, the same clothes Marlise wore when she disappeared. After seeing Marlise's picture, Jody realized she was the young woman from her dreams. She freaked out when they made the connection. She now wanted to find out what happened to Marlise. On Saturday, January 31st, 1976, Marlise and her boyfriend John Baruth went to a flea market in the Eagles Hall at East 20th and Mulberry Streets in Chico. While there, they got into an argument. She decided to walk the 4 miles back to their Parmack Road apartment instead of riding with him. He last saw her at 4 p.m. walking on Mangrove Avenue away from the flea market. No one has seen or heard from her since. When John returned to their apartment, he found that none of her belongings were missing. On February 2nd, when she still had not come home, he reported her missing to the Chico Police Department. Marlise's sister, Martha, says that Marlise was only in Chico for about 2 months before she disappeared. They were from Cleveland, Ohio. There were 7 children in their family. In 1975, Marlise and John met while working together. He was from California and was 6 years older than her. He and Marlise soon fell in love. That December, he planned to return to California to attend Chico State University. He asked Marlise to come with him, and she agreed. Martha believes that Marlise's ultimate dream was to become an actor. She was happy about moving to California, and Martha says it was a big step for her. After arriving in California, Marlise got a part-time job as a model at a local camera shop. She wrote to Martha a couple of times. She said she did not like it in California, and it was not what she had dreamed it would be. Martha believes Marlise and John were having issues in their relationship, and Marlise had nobody to run to or talk to about it. She later told Martha that she would return home in April 1976 and planned to attend college once she got back. After Marlise was reported missing, the police extensively questioned John. They considered him a suspect because he was her boyfriend and the last person to see her. Multiple people had said she had grown tired of the relationship and wanted out. Marlise's mother believed he was into the drug culture. While a detective was at their apartment, John received a hang-up call. He said that it happened often since Marlise disappeared. He agreed to take a polygraph, which he passed. They later cleared him as a suspect. Since Marlise had only lived in Chico for 2 months, there was almost no one else for the police to question. Her family flew to Chico to search for her. They did not believe she voluntarily vanished, as she had never run away before. She never touched her bank account. They did not believe she was despondent or stressed. The search for Marlise spread nationwide. The FBI became involved. Missing person flyers were sent around the country. Her family even hired a private investigator and a psychic, but no trace of her was found. By 1977, her case had gone cold. In her research, Jody learned that Marlise's disappearance was potentially connected to a couple in Red Bluff, California, 47 miles north of Chico. On November 7, 1984, 8 years after Marlise's disappearance, Detective Al Shamblin of the Red Bluff Police Department was told by his supervisor to respond to the Church of the Nazarene in Red Bluff. When Detective Shamblin arrived at the church, he saw the pastor with a woman named Janice Hooker. He noticed that she was extremely upset and emotional. She confessed to her pastor and Detective Shamblin that in 1976, her husband, Cameron Hooker, had kidnapped and killed a young woman in Chico, Marlise Spanhake. She discovered Marlise's name after seeing her driver's license. Janice told them that she came forward because she was afraid of Cameron. She said she had a lot of guilt built up for what had occurred over the years. Detective Shamblin interviewed Janice in detail. She told him that she had met Cameron in 1973 when she was 16 and he was 22. They married 2 years later. She said he was interested in bondage, violence, and torture. During a shopping trip to Chico on January 31st, 1976, Janice and Cameron saw Marlise walking along Mangrove Avenue at around 4 p.m. Cameron circled Marlise a couple of times in his two-door Dodge Colt. At that point, Janice knew that he was going to kidnap Marlise. Cameron pulled over and offered Marlise a ride. Since Janice was with him, Marlise thought it was safe, so she got in the car with him. While driving, he asked her questions like, "What's your name? Where are you from? Where are you going?" She believes Cameron was looking for a woman who did not have any ties to the community. According to Janice, they stopped at an intersection near Marlise's apartment. As Marlise started to get out of the car, Cameron grabbed her by the wrist, put a knife to her throat, and dragged her back in. He placed a head box over her head and handcuffed her. The 20-pound box was constructed of wood and styrofoam. It covered her entire head, making her unable to see. The styrofoam prevented her screams from being heard. Cameron created it to prevent his captive from alerting the neighbors. After placing the head box over Marlise's head, Cameron and Janice drove about 40 miles north along Highway 99 to their house on Oak Street in Red Bluff. Before arriving home, they stopped at a Jolly Cone to get something to eat. When they arrived at their house, they pulled into the garage behind it. Cameron got out, closed the garage door, and went inside. Janice said Marlise was hysterical. She tried to calm her down and told her everything would be okay. She then went inside the house. When she returned a few minutes later, she saw Marlise standing beside the car in a disoriented state. She was no longer wearing the head box. Smelling ether in the air, Janice asked Cameron what he had done. He said that he had sprayed starting fluid into a rag and placed it over Marlise's mouth to make her lose consciousness. Cameron and Janice then carried Marlise into the basement. At around 2 a.m., Janice and Cameron wrapped Marlise's body in a blanket and placed it in the trunk of their car. They drove 30 miles north along Interstate 5 to Redding. They then took Highway 44 east towards Lassen Park. After that, they turned onto a dirt road. Janice remembered it was snowing, and the ground was muddy. At one point, Cameron stopped the car, got out, and dug a shallow grave about 3 feet deep. Janice helped him carry Marlise's body to the grave. After that, he burned her clothing and belongings in a barbecue pit. The only thing he kept was her watch, which was later destroyed. From start to finish, the kidnapping, torture, and murder took about 12 hours. During Detective Shamblin's initial interview with Janice, she talked about the kidnapping of another victim, Colleen Stan. On May 19, 1977, 1 year after Marlise's disappearance, Colleen was hitchhiking from Eugene, Oregon, to a friend's house in Westwood, California. On that day, Cameron and Janice picked her up while she was standing on Antelope Boulevard in Red Bluff. Janice was holding their infant daughter. When they stopped at a gas station for snacks, Colleen says her instincts told her to run away, but she decided to stay. A short time later, Cameron pulled over on a dirt road. He pulled out a knife, threatened her, and put the head box on her. They then took her to their home. Marlise's and Colleen's cases mirror each other. Marlise was 19, and Colleen was 20. They both had long hair. They both had no association with the surrounding area. Janice told Detective Shamblin that Cameron had kept Colleen as a sex slave for 7 years. He kept her naked and handcuffed in a wooden coffin-sized box under his waterbed for 20 hours a day. Norton believes that Janice was mentally at her last rope. When she told Colleen that she was leaving, Colleen begged her not to go because she feared what would happen if she was left alone with Cameron. So, Janice and Colleen kept it a secret until Cameron went to work the next morning. Once he left, they packed their belongings and went to Janice's parents' house. Colleen then took a bus home and was reunited with her family. For a while, Janice stayed with her parents. Colleen did not contact the police because she promised Janice she would not, as Janice wanted to give Cameron a chance to reform. Colleen told her family some of what happened, but it was not until Janice confessed to Detective Shamblin in November 1984 that Colleen said anything to law enforcement. Colleen says that when the police called, she talked to them for several hours and gave them her statement about what had happened to her. They told her that everything she said matched what Janice had said. They then asked Colleen if she knew anything about Marlise. She told them that Cameron had a picture of a woman. She described the photo, and they confirmed that it was of Marlise. At one point, he apparently referenced Marlise when he said to Colleen, "Go ahead and scream. I'll cut your vocal cords, I've done it before." In her confession, Janice recalled Marlise's nickname and place of birth. She also described the clothes Marlise was wearing when they abducted her. Detective Shamblin contacted the Chico police and told them about Janice's confession. But he knew that for them to charge Cameron with Marlise's murder, they needed Janice's cooperation since they did not have Marlise's body or any other evidence. Without her, they would not have a case. Detective Shamblin wanted Janice to show them where she and Cameron had buried Marlise's body. They went on several trips to Lassen Park. They drove east of Reading on highways 44 and 299, checking all the side roads to see if Janice could locate the one they had taken. Unfortunately, the area around the park is large and desolate, with many places to hide a body. The police took Janice on several trips, but they were unable to find the burial site. The district attorney's office felt there was not enough evidence to pursue homicide charges. The DA did not want to risk losing the case at trial, since they would not be able to retry him. Cameron denied any involvement in Marlise's disappearance. Detective Shamblin says the homicide case was the most important to them, but since they could not take it to trial, they pursued Colleen's kidnapping case instead to ensure he went to prison. On November 18, 1984, Cameron was arrested. When the story broke, everyone focused on Colleen. She became known as the girl in the box. After Cameron's arrest, the police searched his home. In the basement, they located the places where Colleen and Marlise were hung from the rafters. They also found pictures of random women. In October 1985, Cameron went on trial for the crimes against Colleen. She testified about her abduction at knife point and subsequent torture. Janice testified as well. She said she helped Cameron because he told her she would burn in hell otherwise. The prosecutor wanted to introduce Marlise's case to show that Cameron had an MO and a history of this behavior, but everything about her was kept out because it was considered too prejudicial, and there was no evidence to prove he killed her. The trial lasted for 6 weeks. In November, Cameron was convicted on 10 counts. While Colleen's case was closed, Marlise's case remained open. However, the police labeled it inactive because there was no new information or avenues for them to follow. Marlise's sister, Martha, was upset that they did not find her body. She says everyone knew Marlise was gone. She was angry that Marlise's case was not brought up during the trial. She was also upset that Cameron was not serving time for what he did to Marlise. After learning the details surrounding Marlise's disappearance and presumed murder, Jody realized that many of the details from her dreams matched up with Janice's confession. She wondered if she had information that could help find Marlise. All of a sudden, she got a feeling. She said to herself, "Stop what you're doing and call the Red Bluff Police Department." In July 2008, Investigator Hale received a call from Jody. She told him that she had lived in Marlise's apartment and wanted to provide him with information that she thought was related to Marlise's murder and a potential gravesite. Investigator Hale asked Jody, "Why are you calling right now?" He told her that they were in the middle of reopening Marlise's case that very day. He says he was freaked out by that. The two later met at a coffee shop. He questioned her for hours. They talked about her dreams. She told him how she had seen Marlise, Cameron, and Janice in her dreams. Investigator Hale says he is always skeptical when people claim to receive information about a criminal case in a dream. Jody was nervous during the meeting. She was afraid she was going to be criticized, but she realized it did not matter if they thought she was crazy. She still needed to give them this information. Because it is an open case, Investigator Hale was not allowed to tell Jody anything. She told him she saw a 17, which she believed was a road Cameron took to Marlise's gravesite. Investigator Hale says there is a road that connects Interstate 5 and Highway 44 called a 17. During the cold case investigation, Investigator Hale wanted to conduct a more thorough interview with Janice and see if they could pinpoint Marlise's burial site. He and another investigator first talked to her in 2010. During the meeting, they reminded her of the immunity agreement. They told her they were not there to arrest her, but they did want to try and get some answers in Marlise's case. During the interview, Investigator Hale felt they got a better description of the road that Janice and Cameron turned down off Highway 44. She gave them better descriptions of some structures they passed on the road. He felt she gave good information. Investigator Hale says the area where they believe Marlise is buried is vast, and that pinpointing her exact location is difficult. However, they feel they have narrowed it down to a good, approximate area. He says Marlise's case is still open and under investigation by the Red Bluff Police Department. They consider it a homicide case. On August 1, 2021, 45 years after Marlise's disappearance, Jody and Investigator Hale met again to discuss the case. Before the meeting, he and the DA talked about discussing the case with Jody. They wondered if it would potentially damage the case in a future court hearing. They decided it would not. They hope that talking about it now will lead to its resolution. During their meeting, Investigator Hale told Jody they were searching a specific area for Marlise's body. He reminded her of the number she envisioned, 35.76. She felt it was the distance from Cameron's house to the gravesite. She believed it was in a northeasterly direction. Investigator Hale says they used mapping software and pinpointed the house and the location where they thought Marlise's body was. Incredibly, the distance that came up was 35.77. He says that a nearby road matched Janice's new description. He also confirmed that Jody was right about several details that she had seen in her dreams. For years, Jody wondered if the information she gave was helpful. Investigator Hale says it reinforced their belief that they are searching in the right area. He hopes that this information will help lead them to Marlise's body. Since Jody left apartment 14, the hauntings have continued. She has been contacted by at least 10 people who have had similar experiences in the same apartment or other parts of the complex. Some of the witnesses, mostly children, reported seeing a vision of a woman. To this day, Jody has trouble talking about her paranormal experiences because she has post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. She says she has always sensed there was something bigger than herself out there. She wants to be known as a caring, empathetic person. She says if she has a gift that can help another person, she wants to use it. She believes Marlise's spirit was trying to get in touch with her. She wants Marlise to be found and for her soul to find rest. And if she can help with that, she will. Detective Shamblin retired from the Red Bluff Police Department in June 2007. He says the only cold case that is still active is Marlise's. Investigator Hale says that any time there is a cold case, they want to try to get closure for the family and justice for the victim. He says there will always be an effort on law enforcement's part to try and close these cases. Martha recently visited Marlise's Chico apartment. She says Marlise was going to start a new life there. She had hoped that Marlise would realize her dream there. Martha says she sometimes saw movie actresses that looked just like Marlise. For a while, she hoped Marlise was alive somewhere. She says Marlise's story never got told, and it was never finished. Martha says Cameron went to prison for what he did to Colleen, but Marlise is still out there, waiting for justice.